All right, welcome everyone. Today, we're doing a deep dive into something I think we all struggle with from time to time.
Oh, yeah.
That pesky thing called self-doubt.
Self-doubt.
We're going to be using Overcoming Self-Doubt, a detailed script, as our main guide. It not only defines what self-doubt is, but also gives us some really practical steps to
Yeah.
actually, you know,
Overcome it.
overcome it. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad to have you here with us today. You always have such an amazing way of connecting the dots between the psychology stuff and what we can actually do about it in our everyday lives.
Well, I'm excited to dive into this source. One thing that really struck me is that it emphasizes that everyone experiences self-doubt.
Oh,
It's
really?
not like this rare thing.
Like some people have it and some people.
Yeah, it's just a normal part of being human.
Oh, that's kind of reassuring in a way.
Yeah.
But if it's so normal, where do we even begin to tackle it?
Right. So the source defines self-doubt as this lack of confidence in ourselves, our abilities, or our decisions. But it's not just about, lacking confidence.
Uh,
It often goes deeper. It can stem from past experiences or maybe fear of judgment
oh, I feel that.
or even that drive for perfectionism.
Yeah, the fear of judgment, that one really gets me sometimes.
Yeah.
It's like I get totally paralyzed.
Yeah.
What I find really interesting is that the source doesn't just stop at defining it.
Right.
It actually breaks down how self-doubt affects us.
Mhm.
Like, not just mentally, but
Professionally and personally.
yeah.
Like across the board.
That's what makes this so important to unpack
Absolutely.
because it has real consequences. Mentally, it can lead to anxiety, like overthinking all the time
Uh-huh.
and just that low self-esteem feeling.
Yeah, and professionally, think about how many times you maybe hesitated to go for that promotion or didn't speak up in a meeting.
Oh my gosh, all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely been there. Have you seen this kind of thing, like working with people
Mhm.
in your experience?
Hmm. Absolutely. Self-doubt can show up as procrastination, missed deadlines, even avoiding certain tasks completely.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And then, as if the mental and professional stuff wasn't enough, the source points out how self-doubt can even spill over into our personal lives.
Oh, totally.
Strained relationships, not taking chances that could help us grow. It's like this ripple effect.
Yeah, it's all interconnected, right? So
Yeah.
if you're feeling it in one area of your life, it can easily affect the others.
So we've established self-doubt is a pretty big deal.
It is.
But the good news is the source doesn't just leave us hanging with the problem.
Thankfully.
It gives us these 8 actionable steps to actually overcome self-doubt. It's like a roadmap.
Yeah.
We're going to walk you through some of the most powerful ones, but where should we even start?
Well, the source starts very smartly, I think, with identifying the root cause of your self-doubt.
Oh, okay.
Like, what's really driving those feelings? Is it past experiences, fear of judgment, perfectionism, or something else entirely?
It's like detective work almost.
Yeah.
Okay, I love that. But how do we even begin to do that? Identify those root causes.
So the source suggests taking some time for self-reflection. Think back to when you first started experiencing these feelings. What was going on in your life? Who were you around? What messages were you receiving, internally and externally?
It's amazing how much we can learn just by reflecting on our experiences.
Yeah.
I've tried that before,
Yeah.
and I mean, sometimes it's uncomfortable, but it's where the growth happens, right?
Exactly. And once you've identified those root causes, the source encourages us to actually challenge the negative thoughts that fuel self-doubt.
Yeah, that inner critic can be so loud sometimes.
Oh, tell me about it. So the source even suggests replacing that negative self-talk with positive affirmations.
Positive affirmations, have you tried that?
Oh, yeah?
Me too.
Mm-hmm.
I used to be so hard on myself, but then I read about affirmations and I thought, well, why not give it a shot? So I started catching those negative thoughts and I would replace them with something more positive and encouraging.
And how did that work for you?
You know what? It really did feel like I was retraining my brain. Like focusing on what I can do, not what I can't.
That makes sense.
I'll be honest, I was a little skeptical at first. I was like,
Yeah.
that sounds a bit cheesy, saying these positive things to myself.
Right.
But the source actually gives some really helpful tips on how to do it effectively.
Oh, good.
It's not about just saying positive things blindly.
No.
It's about questioning those doubts, looking at the evidence, and reframing those thoughts into something more objective and helpful.
I like that. It's not about denying the challenges, but shifting your perspective,
Yeah.
focusing on your strengths.
Okay, so we've identified the root causes. We're challenging those negative thoughts. What's next on this self-doubt busting journey?
Well, the source then encourages us to shift our focus to our strengths.
Okay, I like that.
Make a list of your achievements, your skills. Remind yourself what you're actually capable of.
That is so crucial. It's so easy to dwell on what we think we lack. But when you acknowledge your strengths, it can be a real game changer. Like when I focus on what I'm good at, I feel so much more confident.
Absolutely. Recognizing our strengths builds resilience against self-doubt. It's like a shield against those negative thoughts.
I love that.
Think about a time you felt really proud of yourself. What strengths were you using in that moment?
That's a great question for our listeners to think about.
Yeah.
And speaking of things that can fuel self-doubt, the source talks about this tendency to compare ourselves to others,
Oh, that's a big one.
especially with social media these days.
It's so easy to get caught in that comparison trap. And it rarely leaves us feeling good.
No, it doesn't.
No.
But the source gives some tips on how to shift our focus back to our own personal growth, celebrating our progress, no matter how big or small,
Right.
remembering that everyone's journey is different.
Absolutely. You're on your own unique path, and comparing yourself to others is only going to hold you back.
So true. Okay, we've talked about identifying the root causes, challenging negative thoughts, focusing on strengths, and avoiding comparisons. Ready to tackle another one of these steps?
Bring it on.
Okay, this next one is all about embracing failure as a learning opportunity.
Okay.
The source wants us to shift our mindset and see failure not as the end of the road.
But as a stepping stone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer that we learn more from our mistakes than our successes.
You know, I've found that people who can embrace failure are often the most successful. They're not afraid to take risks because they know even if they fail, they'll learn something valuable.
Absolutely. I remember this one time I totally bombed a presentation at work. Mortified at the time, but looking back, it was such a valuable learning experience. Taught me the importance of preparation, helped me develop my public speaking skills.
Perfect example of how a growth mindset can turn setbacks into valuable lessons. And the source is full of examples like that, showing how those moments that feel like failures can actually propel us forward. That story about your presentation, it reminds me of something the source highlights. Failure isn't a reflection of your worth.
Okay.
It's just a natural part of learning. It's about reframing failure as feedback.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, valuable information that helps you grow.
Instead of beating yourself up about it.
Exactly. And that leads perfectly into the next step, taking action despite fear. This is where the rubber meets the road, right?
Okay, yeah.
Action is the antidote to self-doubt.
So don't just sit there and think about it.
The source even reminds us that even small steps taken consistently can lead to big changes.
It's not about waiting until you feel totally confident, right?
Right. It's about taking action even when you're scared, because that's how you actually build confidence.
Oh, I see.
It's like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
Yeah.
The source gives some concrete examples. Like, it could be something as simple as speaking up in a meeting, even if your voice shakes a little.
Okay.
Or finally signing up for that class you've been putting off because you're afraid of failing.
You're there.
Or even just, striking up a conversation with someone new, even if you're feeling a bit shy.
These all seem small, but
They're huge steps in building confidence.
yeah, they are. I love how the source really emphasizes consistency, though.
Yes.
It's not about like one grand gesture. It's about those small wins day after day.
And speaking of daily practices, the source offers some that we can incorporate to really build confidence over time.
Okay, yeah. What kind of things?
These practices work on a deeper level, like helping to shift your mindset, create a more positive internal dialogue.
I like that. Get into the root of the issue instead of just tackling the surface stuff.
Exactly. So the source suggests 4 key practices: gratitude, affirmations, mindfulness, and physical self-care.
Wow, okay. That's quite a bit.
This holistic approach, right? Mind and body.
Yeah, that makes sense. Have you experimented with any of these practices yourself?
Of course. I've found that incorporating these into my routine has made a big difference in how I deal with self-doubt.
Really? Like which ones?
Well, for example, I've been keeping a gratitude journal for a few years now, and it's amazing how much it's shifted my perspective. The source suggests writing down 3 things you're grateful for every day.
3 things.
Yeah, they don't have to be major, even simple things like a beautiful sunset or a delicious cup of coffee.
It's like training your brain to appreciate the good things.
Exactly. And there's actual science behind it. Gratitude has been shown to shift our focus from what we lack to what we have,
Oh, interesting.
which can have a huge impact on your well-being.
That makes sense. And along with gratitude, I know the source also talks about positive affirmations.
Oh, yes, they're powerful.
We mentioned those earlier for challenging negative thoughts, but the source also says that repeating those encouraging statements can actually rewire your brain.
It creates new neural pathways, replacing negative thought patterns with more positive ones.
Wow.
I've seen this in my work. When people consistently practice affirmations, they start to see themselves and their abilities differently.
It's like you're training your mind to focus on the positive.
And then there's mindfulness.
Mindfulness.
It's a way to stay present, reduce overthinking. When I'm feeling overwhelmed by self-doubt, taking a few minutes to practice mindfulness really helps calm my mind.
Oh, yeah, I get that.
Mindfulness techniques like meditation can help us become more aware of our thoughts and feelings without judgment.
It's like creating a space between you and those negative thoughts.
Exactly. You gain the power to choose how you respond.
Okay, so we've got gratitude, affirmations, and mindfulness. What about physical self-care? Where does that fit in?
Well, the source emphasizes that physical self-care, things like exercising regularly, eating well, and getting enough rest, are crucial for mental and emotional well-being too.
This is something I'm always preaching. When you take care of your body, you just feel better overall. Mentally and physically.
It's all connected. There's a strong link between our physical health and our mental clarity, our confidence.
Okay, so we've covered a lot here.
We have.
Self-doubt, its impact, steps to overcome it, daily practices for confidence.
It's been a journey.
But there's one more important point this source brings up. It can be a bit sensitive, but sometimes self-doubt runs deeper.
Right.
And we might need professional support.
Absolutely. The source reminds us that seeking help is a sign of strength, not weakness.
Yeah.
If self-doubt is interfering with your daily life, your relationships, your goals, don't hesitate to reach out to a therapist or counselor.
It's like acknowledging that we don't have to go through this alone. There are experts who can help us navigate those feelings.
Exactly. Therapy can be incredibly helpful in addressing those deep-rooted insecurities and developing coping mechanisms.
And it's important to emphasize, seeking help is a sign of self-awareness, a commitment to personal growth.
Excellent.
There's no shame in reaching out. Now, before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to go back to something we talked about earlier, the importance of taking action.
Right, this is where the real magic happens. It's not enough to just understand self-doubt, you have to actually challenge it.
And remember, action doesn't have to be this big dramatic thing.
It can start with small, manageable steps.
So, give us an example. What could that look like?
Well, think back to what we discussed. It could be speaking up in that meeting, even if your voice shakes.
Okay.
Or finally signing up for that class, or just striking up a conversation with someone new.
Small steps, but huge for confidence building.
Exactly. Because every time you take action despite the fear, you prove to yourself you're capable of more than you think.
It's about shifting from I can't to I can.
Believing in yourself even when it feels hard.
So what's one small action our listeners can take today to start building that confidence muscle?
It could be anything. Sending that email you've been putting off, starting that creative project, even just complimenting yourself in the mirror.
Yeah, every step, no matter how small, brings you closer to that confident person you want to be.
Exactly. And as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to leave you with this thought. You are stronger than your doubts.
You have everything you need within you to overcome them.
The journey might not always be easy, but it's so worth it.
Because on the other side of self-doubt, there's a world of possibility.
A world where you can achieve your goals, live a life that feels authentic, and truly shine.
So take a deep breath, believe in yourself, and take that first step. And we're back for the final part of our deep dive into conquering self-doubt.
Been a really insightful journey with overcoming self-doubt. A detailed script, hasn't it?
Yeah, we've covered so much ground, from those root causes to those daily practices for building confidence.
Oh, and of course, remembering to seek professional help when we need it.
Right, that's so important. But before we wrap things up completely, one thing that's really stuck with me is that self-doubt doesn't have to be a life sentence.
I know, it's so freeing to realize that.
It's not like, oh, this is just who I am, I'm stuck with this forever.
Exactly, it can be changed.
The source makes it really clear that we have the power to overcome this.
With the right tools and the right mindset.
To unlock our true potential. It's like we can rewrite that story,
Absolutely. Shift from being held back by doubt to being propelled forward by belief.
Yeah. Okay, so as we close out this deep dive, let's recap those key takeaways to help us on this journey.
Sounds good.
First and foremost, self-doubt is normal. We all experience it. It's part of being human,
Absolutely.
but it doesn't have to control us.
We have the power to challenge those negative thoughts, focus on our strengths, and take action even when we're afraid.
And remember those daily practices we talked about. Gratitude, affirmations, mindfulness, taking care of ourselves physically.
Like building a toolkit for resilience.
I love that analogy.
Mhm.
And if those feelings become overwhelming, don't hesitate to reach out for help.
You don't have to go through it alone.
There's no shame in that. In fact, it takes courage and self-awareness.
So as we leave you today, we want to leave you with this final thought-provoking question, inspired by what we've learned.
Go ahead, hit us with it.
What's one small action you can take today to start building that confidence muscle?
What's one thing our listeners can do right now?
Could be anything. Sending that email you've been putting off, starting that creative project, even just looking in the mirror and giving yourself a compliment.
Because remember, every step, no matter how small, takes you closer to that confident person you are.
So go out there, conquer those doubts. We believe in you.